Hello guys, so in this episode we are gonna talk about how to use the local database and how to use events to wire things up. Not to wire things up, but to wire things up. Save. Okay. Um, so let's start by opening up our project. Let's continue from where we left off. And let's call this episode 4. Okay. And I prepared this notepad where we will go over the steps that we need to do in this episode. Okay, so first off, we need to, before this step, we need to install the local database, and we will be using Realm database. I will show you why. So if you go to their page, if you Google Realm database, you go to their page, you can see there is .NET SDK, and we can start with the quick start, and you can see how you create your database objects. You need to have a primary key, some required fields, stuff like that. This is how you open the Realm. This is how you add items inside a write block. That's a transaction. Then you have some sort of getting all the items, filtering, ordering, finding items, and modifying, deleting. We will not be using deleting. You never want to delete anything in your database, at least not immediately, but we will flag the object as it needs to be deleted sometime in the future. Okay, so let's start with that. So this task here is done. So let's configure RAM. Okay, install first. Actually, that task was not done. So you search for RAM and you install RAM to your project. You will see it uses RAM.40. 40 is this kind of tool to which at compile time generates some code based on your, let's say, attributes and stuff like that. You will see what I mean. So let's give it some time. Takes some time to install. I will pause the recording and get back when we have the package installed. And we are back. So let's install the RAM. Accept. Okay. Now we got the RAM in our solution, so we can say we installed the RAM. So let's first create a realm model for a task. Let's add a new folder db and let's create a new class called, well, task db, and it needs to inherit realms.realm object. Sorry. Okay. Let's make it public. Everything Xamarin. It's better if you use just public. And let's copy out some properties from here. there should also be an ID for each item. So I forgot to add it here. ID. So you need a unique identifier for each item in the database, but we'll also use it in our UI items as well. You'll see why later on. Anyways, let's define ID. Okay. And let's make it a primary key. Let's make name required. And let's make description required as well. Okay, so we have a deadline. And now you will see one thing here. If you rebuild the solution now, there should be an error saying datetime is not supported, use datetime offset instead. So we will be using that instead. I will not be putting required on it, but yeah, we have a bool completed. What else do we have? We can have a public datetime offset completed at, and this can be nullable because at first, when we first add the item, we don't have any completion value when it was completed or not. And finally, let's add the boolean is deleted. So we will never remove any items from the database. We'll just set this flag to true. Okay, now that we have a database object, let's create a database service. So now let's add a new folder called services. Okay, and let's add a new folder called interfaces. So for the dependency injection, we will be creating interfaces here for the services that we create down here. So let's add a new class called realm service. Let's make it public. And let's add an interface called I realm service. And let's make it public interface realm service. Okay, so what do we need to have? We need to have get items for the main page so we can load these items. We need to add item and we need to find item. So looking at here, it's pretty simple to add items, find items, get all items. So let's define these methods. So let's say, first of all, we want to have some sort of, we know that these operations can fail. So we need some sort of a model for our database, which is our result wrapper. I will show you what I mean. Let me just add it first. And let's call it db operation result. And it should have a boolean at least is success. And let's add another class, DB operation, but with T data, which inherits DB operation result, and it has a public T data. Let's call it data. Okay. Now in our realm service, let's make this methods. Let's define the interface with these methods. So the first one is public void configure realm, because if you look at here, somewhere in here there should be configuration of the realm. Um, okay, they don't have it. I can't find it here, but you gonna have to trust me on this one. Um, it's using realms.configure realm configuration, and let's call it configuration. So we need to have a configure realm method in our service. We need to have get items with filter. So we want to filter those that are not deleted. For example, for the main page loading. So let's try to make that method. So let's say db operation um, actually no, how did I call it? The db operation result. So db operation result of what? Of enumerable of some t data, and let's call it get table or get data of t data, and let's already make where t data is a realm object. So in this way we will get all the data for a table, but we want some filter inside as well. So the filter will be some function which takes in what should it take in? It takes in t data object and the boolean value for the whether or not the data should be taken. This is a filter. Let's call it filter instead. Okay. So what's the other item? So these two are done. So now we need to add item, and that is only db operation result, because we don't need to return anything when adding. We just need to know whether it's successful or not. So db operation result add t data, or let's say string, no, but t data item, where t data is realm object. Something like this should be fine, I'm pretty sure. And db operation result find. This will probably return that data, t data, and we will search by string ID or primary key, and we will return the item inside. Now that we define this interface, we will just apply it to realm service, and let's now implement it here. Okay, so first off, configure realm. Let's put it on top. So this method we will not actually use, but let me show you how you usually use it. So you would do something like current.resolve or container.resolve and I realm service, and you would go configure realm and a new realm configuration here, where you can say what's your database path, what's your schema version, all the configuration that you would want. Let's leave it like this, and let's say TBD, to be decided, or TBA, to be added. And we can also register our service now here. And how should we register it? And I would say register just singleton. Why? Because there is a single database that we will be using over the app. It should live always. It makes sense to be singleton. So I run service and we will register it to RAM service. Okay. And now let's implement those methods. Okay, so add operation. How should that work? If we look at the quick start, there's this code, how you add an object. You can use the realm and just write a new item to it. But before that you need to get instance, right? So let's do that before. So let's make a private void, private realm get instance, sorry, and return realm dot get instance. And it takes a config in. So we can say private realm configuration. Configuration use this config that we set to get the instance that we want. Okay. Pretty simple. So here we would do something like get instance dot write, and then we would make an action where we just add the item, right? But I wanna make this safe. I wanna use this db operation result, so I will make a method called private db operation result. This method will wrap the operation and try to catch any errors. So let's call it safe run, and it will take a func of realm just an action on the realm actually, or just an action. Let's see how it will go. Let's use try and catch blocks. And now let's define some private read-only DB operation result success. If success equals true, and one for XSX equals false. Let's define these cached values for success and error. So let's always return error for the failure and return success for the successful action. And let's say var ram equals get instance. We get the instance of the ram, and let's do ram dot write and call the action here. Okay, this should be fine. And our action here will be save run, and the action is okay. We need an action that takes in the realm. Actually, yeah, realm. And let's say realm dot add our new item. Okay, and we return this. Something like this. From array to system action. Okay, let's maybe just not do this, but like this. And here we will do ram.write, ram.add item. So what we did here is we wrapped our transaction in a safe run block. So here we could beautify this and say something like this. So we wrap this whole transaction in a safe run block in which we will return the error if the action is not successful, and we will need to do that same thing for the other operations, like for adding the data. Let's give me a second to grab some water. Okay, now let's try to implement the safe run for these type of DB operations. So let's copy and paste this for starters. But we will need a function here, right? Which takes realm and returns the data. And we will need the data here as well. Okay, but success and error will have to be new equals true, and the data equals not the action but function, not function but let's say transaction, transaction. Let's call this transaction as well. And let's use transaction over realm here. Okay, instead of the error, we will return new DP operation result, which is not successful, and the data is null, or just no data. Simple as that. And let's now try to implement this method here, but let's put it on top because it's the most important one for getting all the data. And let's return safe run of the data, where we call let's say realm, and we do realm dot all of the data dot where with link, and use filter as a predicate, and let's return that. So what's the issue? Cannot implicitly convert to T data. Okay, we do it like this because the actual data that we're returning is enumerable of T data, and you can see if we write it like this, we have the option to remove it to simplify it. Okay, and let's just implement the find. Find will be also return safe run, where with realm we will do something like realm.find data primary key, and let's just return it if it's there. Okay, this should give us a database client now, the realm service. We also registered it here as a singleton, so that means we can finally use it in our application. So let's use it on our ad, and let's use it on our main page view model. Let's first start with the ad. So if the validation is fine, let's close everything out. The shortcut is Control plus M. I'll write it here for you. So the shortcut is Control plus M, Control plus O to close out everything like this. That's what I used just now. Anyways, so now what do we want? We want to inject the service. How do we do that? We use the constructor and we call iRealm service. Not call, but we put the realm service here, and we create and assign the field for it. So let's see, where's the field? I like to keep my fields on top of the class, except these which are connected directly to the bindable property. Anyways, with realm service we could try to add new item now. Let's see what our realm service interface provides. Configure realm, get data, add and find. Let's use the add and task db. Okay, and let's create a new task db item. And what do we say about this item? Well, we need to generate the ID for the item first. So let's say var task ID equals GUID dot new GUID dot toString. This will generate a unique identifier. GUID represents a global unique identifier. It's almost there is no way in the universe that this is gonna repeat itself. It's a very small chance, so we can safely use this as our ID. Then the name equals the name provided in the UI, description as well. Deadline, well, now there is one thing with deadline. So deadline here is datetime. Actually, in our DB it's datetime offset, but we have a datetime here. So in our extension methods I will show you how you can convert between the two. And let's add a new class. Let's add a new class and a new task here. Datetime conversion. So let's call it date extensions, datetime extensions. And let me show you what I mean. So public static datetime offset. Let's call it to offset. And let's extend this datetime. Okay, and we will return datetime dot to universal time, but we want to specify kind as well to be datetime universal. So just trust me on this. This is a known and tested way of saving the datetime to the datetime offset in the database. But when we are presenting it on the UI, we want it opposite. So we want the datetime from offset. And we will extend this datetime offset. And we will just use datetime offset dot datetime to local time. Okay. And now we are done with that task as well. So add page. Let's continue with the add page tasks. So where did we left off? It was the deadline. So we have our deadline on the UI. Deadline dot from, or actually to offset. Let's call that method our extension method. Okay. What else is that we need? Is completed equals false. Is deleted equals false, even though we don't need to specify that, and that's basically it. Okay, maybe we can say completed as equals null, or not touch it at all because it's already a null and this is already false. So yeah, this is the part that we need, and we can simplify this. Okay, so this is how we save the item to the database. So this section is actually returning a DB operation result, meaning we can check DB success by saying if this operation is successful, and if DB success, then we will just go back async. Otherwise, we will await page dialog service and we will display something like error. Something went wrong. Please try again. And with the OK button. Okay. One more thing. So now I wanna get back to the realm service and I wanna, since we don't have any logger in the application, I just wanna make a breakpoint here in case we are missing out on something. Okay. And let's run this once just to see how this goes. If when we press the add, if it actually works proper. There is nothing that's gonna show up on the main page yet because we did not complete this task. That's the loading for database or event that will notify the main page of the newly added task. But we will get to that in a moment. Let's just make one quick build to see if we added a few things, so let's see if this works, if it breaks anything or anything like that. Okay, so far everything is good. Deployment was successful. Okay, let's try it out. Let's try to make local db test. Test 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Deadline, let's say 29. Let's press save now. Okay, so task ID is some globally unique identifier. Data is valid, of course. Now was this successful? It's true. Okay. And we just go back async, but nothing's showing up yet. Okay, so let's make it show up by using events now. So let's create an event. We can create events in a special folder. Let's call the folder events. And let's add a new item. Let's call it task add edit event. Let's make it public. And if we look at the Prism library, we can try to see, yeah, this is the event aggregator. So how do we create an event? So we just need to inherit a pub sub event with some data that we will be sending around. Okay, so pub sub event. And what's our data? We could just be sending ID of the item, but I want to send something else as well, and that will be new class, and let's call it task edit event data, and let's make it have public string task ID and public bool. Um, is edited or is edit in the question, because later on we will be sending events for when the items are edited, not only when they are edited. Okay, and let's use task edit event data as our data for the pub sub event. And if we look at how how this works, so need this event aggregator, and you need to get your event and publish it. And you also need to subscribe to events, or you wanna also unsubscribe from the event. I will show you, not to look at this too much. Let me just show you in code. Okay, so first of all, should we add it to the base page? Maybe not. Maybe just use it on the pages where it's actually needed. Okay, so it's called I event ag aggregate aggregator from Prism. Let's call it event aggregator, and let's assign a field for it. That's nice. And let's use the same for the add page as well. Let's copy and paste from here. Okay. And here what do we want to do here? Well, here if our DB operation is successful, we want to publish the event. So event aggregator get event, we type out our event type, which is task edit event. We include it in our spaces. Okay, and then we publish publish the data with it. The data is task ID, which is our task ID that we added to the database, and the is edit, we'll just set it to false for now, and later on when this page will have editing functionality, this will change to something else. Okay, and now our main page needs to subscribe to such an event, so we will use event aggregator dot let's add some more stuff to the base page. Let's add I destructible, because we want some sort of mechanism to dispose of things. Let's make it virtual so that we can override the destroy in our main page or in our add or edit page. And let's also add initialize for initializing pages. That's also a Prism mechanism, one of the advantages of Prism framework. And let's also make a virtual. For now they don't have anything in them. Okay. But let's keep the constructor only for some simple assignments, but let's override the initialize for some heavier stuff, for the actual initialization of the page. And for example, event aggregator get event of our event. Let's subscribe here. And let's create an action. Private void task add edit event task added edited fired or just task added edited with task add edit event data. Let's call it just data. Let's subscribe here. And the good practice is always when you subscribe to something, always unsubscribe as well right after you subscribe. So we will unsubscribe here from task edited, task add or edited. We will just subscribe here and unsubscribe here. Okay, so here if data dot is edit will just do nothing for now, but otherwise if it's true, if it's a newly added item, we can use realm service to get the item from the database and actually map it to our UI model. Okay, so here we will use realm service dot find, and we will be finding task database by the key of data.task ID. Let's call this search, and if search is success, then we will do var task db equals search dot data, which is our database task, and we will just map it now to the UI model. Task UI equals new task UI. We can now also remove all these testing tasks because we will now have the actual LED functionality. Let me see how much. We are already 50 minutes in. It's fine, we should be done pretty soon. Okay, so what should we do here? We should just map ID is taskdb.id, name is taskdb.name, deadline is taskdb.deadline, but it's daytime offset, and let's convert it to from offset. Let's call our extension method from offset to the datetime, and description is also from the database, and this completed also from the database. And now items, we can just add our newly added item, task UI, or actually insert it at the position 0 so that it is on top. Okay, so let's test this out, and if we are done with that, we can start loading the item between sessions. We can load the items between sessions, and we can delete the items as well. Okay, let's try adding a task. Okay, task 1 description, deadline, let's say tomorrow. Okay, save. Okay, we got an exception. One or more errors occurred. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. And where is this exception? It's in async command, so probably somewhere around here. So let's try to continue. Save again. Okay. Task DB, let's see. Completed add. ID. We can see the ID is there. It's completed this deadline. Okay, the deadline is not set for some reason. It doesn't seem to be. Oh, it actually is. But you have to look at it here. Okay. Let's see. Items is null. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, we never initialized the items now. Items equals new observable collection items. So yeah, when we deleted the test code, we never initialized the items again. So let's try again. Let's add task 1, task 1 description, and the deadline tomorrow. Okay, and here it is. Let's add task 2, description, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, test 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 test, save it, and as you can see, it's all working well. And we are not we're not using navigation to achieve the adding of the items, but we are just sending events and reading the data from database here. So this is a nice mechanism, in my opinion, to have for adding and editing items when you have a local DB. Okay, so the only thing left is these two things. We wanna load the items on the first page. So when we run the application again, you will see there's nothing here, but we do have items in the database. We just don't show them yet. So instead I will cut this and initialize it here instead. Or maybe just like this. Maybe yes, I will initialize it here on initialize. Doesn't matter, doesn't work like that. So instead in initialize, let's call run service and get data, and the filter will be get data. We need generic parameter. We want to get task db, where is deleted is false, and we wanna order it by maybe. So we get this. First we get operation search, and then if search is success, then let's say var items equals search dot items dot data, and then we wanna order this data maybe by deadline or something like that, but we need to include system.link here to achieve that. Let me check. Enumerable of task db. For some reason where this is not giving me any. Oh yeah, we need to add the system.link and then ordered by x.deadline, or ordered by descending. No, actually the lower the deadline the better, right? And then we'll just actually use this here, and for each var item in items we'll just items.add the item. Okay, we also need to map it. We already have the mapping function. Okay, let's call this task db. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's make a breakpoint just in case, or here as well. Okay, search is success is true, that's nice. Database tasks is some order and enumerable. Okay, I think we got 3, 4 items, 5 items even. Oh yeah, we did add some items previously, I think. Okay, let's implement the deletion now, so that we can see that this actually works. So we need a delete command. And that delete command actually will need a parameter. So we will need to create a sync command version of a sync command version of it with the parameter. I will show you why. So we'll need some t data here. And so the task will need to be actually an action, I think, or a function which takes t data in and returns a task. Anyways, let's do this later. Let's first set up the delete command. So delete command equals new async command for now. Delete command execute. But this command needs to have a string or string task ID as a parameter. Okay. So let's actually implement this async command now. So yeah, the data. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what we need. What's the difference here? We need the argument. We need to check that our parameter is actually the data. And here, if parameter is the data, let's say param. Let's say if it's not param, then we'll just return. We don't wanna execute the command with the wrong parameter. Otherwise, we will execute it with the right parameter. That's basically it. The only change we need to add. Simple as that. And how do we bind this? Actually, yeah, let's go to the main page view. Let's find the delete button. It's an image view somewhere around here. Yeah, it's this one. So the command needs to be, oh yeah, it's an image, so doesn't have a command, but it does have gesture recognizers, and we will use tap gesture recognizer. For the command, we will give it binding delete command. And for the command parameter, we'll be binding to ID of the item. Let me check in the models UI. We do have the ID, but we don't have a delete command there, so we need a source for this to be our main page binding context. So we will just xname this to be main page. Main page, and it's on the binding context of the main page. Okay, this should work fine. And what do we wanna say here? We wanna say something like delete allowed by saying page dialog service dot display alert sync warning. Are you sure you want to delete this item? Question mark. And with options yes and option no. Okay. And then if delete is allowed, I will, let's say, if the delete is allowed, then we will just realm service find the item. We will need to update it to, oh yeah, we need a new method on the realm service. Let me just edit. So instead we need a db operation result where we update the item with string primary key and an action that takes the data and let's call it update transaction, and let's say where the data is realm object. Okay, and let's implement this in our realm service. Where is it? Okay, here, and let's save run, return the safe run of what do we wanna save run? We wanna do realm and we wanna do realm.find the data with the primary key. Then we wanna update transaction on that entry, right? And then we wanna add the entry with the update is true. This is a mechanism to actually update the entry after we apply something to it. Okay, so what do we do in the main view model? We just call realm service dot update. String primary key is task ID, and we do the action of is deleted to be true, and we need to specify here that we're working with taskdb, and that's it. This is how we remove it from the database. And how do we remove it from the items? Oh yeah, maybe it's better if we don't send a string but a full item. Let's send task UI item. Let's change the command, and to send the whole item we just use the dot here, item itself, and then the item dot ID here, and items dot remove item. And let's test this out. And this should be the end of this tutorial. We are a little bit over 1 hour, but this was the most important part, in my opinion, in this series. So let's try to delete. Let's say no, nothing happens. Let's say yes. Okay, we have an exception. Cannot modify managed objects outside of a write transaction. Okay, maybe we did not write somewhere. Wrong. Okay. Then maybe just ram.write. Maybe we just need to, yeah, let's just put everything into a ram.write block. Okay. We can separate this one, but the update transaction and the update of the entry needs to be in the right block. So let's do that. Okay, so let's try to delete this task 1 with task 1 description. Okay, it worked. Let's close down the app. Let's see if that it's not there anymore. Okay, let's delete all these task 1s. Let's add a new task 1 with new task 1 description. Let's add some crazy deadline. It's a first on the list here, but this should be last after we restart the application with the ordering that we set. Yeah, and yeah, basically you can now delete the items or add the items. Let's close down the app, open it again, and yeah, it's all working as expected. And this is it for this video. So we went over how to create the realm service, how to send events, how to delete the items, add the items, and maybe in the next episode I will think about it. Maybe we'll go over editing the items now, and later on how to build a search bar and how to build this custom control here for sorting. We will see, but this is it for this tutorial. I will share the code as usual, and thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next episode. Goodbye.